Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our DASH webinar. And today's webinar is WorkWise Integrated Document Management Overview. And my name is Colleen Sheridan. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenters today. First is Roger Miller. He's a senior consultant with WorkWise. He has over 30 years of experience of the ERP industry and many years with WorkWise. Second is Jim Van Hecke. Jim is the president of Dash. Dash has been around for about 20 years, and WorkWise has been partnering with them for the duration of that time. Without further ado, go ahead, Jim. It's all you.
Good morning. This is Roger. Actually, I'll kick things off and then turn things over to Jim. Good morning, everyone. We're just delighted with having all of you attend our Dash DDX webinar here this morning. The attendance is projected. Our sign-ups are almost 50 customers, and we're just delighted with this turnout. I think it is a true statement that the Dash DDX relationship and application is an extremely valuable one for all of our customers. And Jim is going to, I'm sure, do a great job of continuing to promote the notion of efficiencies and paperless. And so welcome, everyone. We have customers on the line here today from Wisconsin, Maine, Iowa, Kansas, New York, Michigan, Georgia, Minnesota, Texas, Illinois, Missouri, North Carolina, Florida, and New Jersey. So my goodness, welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Jim Van Hecke, president of Dash. He will be covering an overview, showing you the product live, identifying new capabilities and benefits, and also talk about other services that the Dash organization can provide. And at the end, we will reserve some time for your questions, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as well at the end of the webinar. So, Jim, take it away.
Hi, everyone. This is Jim Van Hecke. What I would like you all to remember as you're watching this today is that DDX is for a bunch of different purposes, and most of you already have the tool. We want to all make sure that you get the most out of the tools that you already own. So remember, and we'll repeat this a couple times throughout, DDX is for dealing with the forms that you produce out of the ERP systems. Order acknowledgments, invoices, statements, etc., purchase orders. It can grab those things, archive them automatically, deliver them, and so on and so forth. And it can deal with other things that are related to ERP entities, like a customer purchase order might be related to a customer order in the ERP system. But I want you to think a little bit beyond that as well. DDX is there and available for you to use for almost any other kind of document or file you might be dealing with, whether it's related to the ERP system or not. And also, most of you have the tools available to you right now to make DDX useful for other systems and other business processes that you might be using internally. So don't limit your view, expand your view, look at DDX as a potential solution for a lot of different things in your organization, including those things that are linked and related to the ERP system. So we'll revisit this a couple times. Most of the companies that we deal with and have talked to over the years have a bunch of headaches in common. Everyone has a document management system, and for many people, it looks like the stack of paper that you see there on the left. For other people, they're scanning things in and keeping them electronically, but that depends on me putting that scanned thing in the right place and named exactly the right thing if I ever have a hope of being able to find it again later. And still others use their own personal emails for storing documents, and now they're not accessible to the other people in the organization that might need them. That means that the information stored in those documents, whether it's on paper or electronic, is trapped in one location and maybe not easily accessible to those that need it. It's also information that's at risk. It's easy to lose it, damage it, destroy it, and now recreating it may very well be impossible. And there's a lot of busy work involved in putting the stuff away, maintaining it, organizing it, and then dealing with it at the end of its life. So that adds up to a whole lot of waste that we exist to help eliminate in your organization. I want you to imagine for a moment that finding your documents, whatever they may be, could be this easy. You're sitting in the WorkWise ERP system, you're looking at your customer service workbench, you've popped up this order number 841, and you want to see the documents related to it, so you just click the Document Archive button, and when you do that, up pops your document viewer, and it's already performed a search that is searching for all documents related to that particular order. And those things can be things like the order acknowledgement or maybe the invoice that came from the ERP system initially, but it can also be things like emails that are related to this order, or the customer purchase order where I received it from them. Could be scanned copies of signed documents, or even pictures of product before you ship them out the door. All of those things are there and available at the click of a button from a whole variety of different places inside the ERP system. So what is DDX? Its mission is twofold. One, it's document management, letting you share and search and secure pretty much any document you wish. Again, whether it's created through the ERP system, many things that would be related to things in the ERP system, and things outside of that realm as well. The other mission of DDX is to deliver your documents by email and or fax and or printing and filing a copy as well, all automatically. So when you print your purchase order or your batch of purchase orders, they can be dispersed by DDX to the people that need them, and a copy can be filed away for you, all without having to lift an additional finger. If you're asked where DDX is used, you get a lot of different answers from a lot of different people. But one of the themes you see here is these are all related to manufacturing and distribution types of companies. That encompasses 100% of our audience for this product. So we're very focused on what you folks do. And that gives us an ability to deliver a system that from the day one is set up out of the box to handle a lot of the needs that you may have. And you'll notice there's a lot of sample things up here. You may use it for some things and not others. And there's some of these items here that are highlighted, that those things like a customer purchase order or an email are things that come from outside of the ERP system. You can use DDX to capture and organize them and tie all these things together in a way that makes sense. Now, DDX does a really good job of integrating with the WorkWise system, so much so that sometimes it's a little hard to distinguish where one stops and the other starts. The way this integration works is it starts with dealing with the ERP forms like purchase orders. You just print them, and DDX wakes up and recognizes them and grabs some delivery preferences, grabs some of the data from those things to set up tags and keywords so that it can deliver them and file a copy so that you can go later on and search for them and view them when you need them, whether it's on the standard desktop viewer or the optional web viewer / portal. All those things are available to you right away. Now that covers a lot of the things that are coming out of the ERP system, but we also give you tools to capture and classify all sorts of other documents that come from other places, whether they're scanned things or PDFs or Word or whatever. DDX can house those things as well, and if you do a good job of classifying them, they're now related to the things that you see in the ERP system. Integration can also take place here with an enhancement that lets us validate those keywords and maybe even look some of them up from the database that sits behind the WorkWise ERP software or other databases along the way. So we can make that job even a little bit easier. Another integration point is the context-sensitive search. We just saw that in the workbench where I was able to click a button and perform a search and locate all the documents related to the order that I was looking at in the ERP system. And you'll find there's a whole bunch of places where that manifests itself. Our form recognition module, which is an option for you, may also be used to recognize scanned forms and the like. So the same processes of filing and delivering and so on and so forth might be useful for you when you're talking about some of the paper that you need to scan in later. WorkWise has a whole bunch of forms that are pre-integrated to make it easy for you to capture and deliver these things using DDX. DDX, in addition, comes with a bunch of other document types that are predefined so that you can use it for housing things like that customer PO we saw earlier and a variety of other things. And you can add others when you wish. So if we don't have a corner on the market on all the different kinds of documents that you might wish to house and protect within DDX, but you've got the tools to add that and tweak that and poke and prod it so that it fits your environment well. Now, if you add the optional form recognition module, you can also automate the archival of things that are produced from other systems as well. So if you've got a shipping system or a quality system or some other thing that's spitting out forms, DDX can be trained to recognize them and told what to do with them when you print them to DDX. That includes things like SSRS, SQL Server Reporting Services reports, and Crystal reports and the like. DDX is built into a lot of the workbenches like we saw earlier, and there's just a whole bunch of places where DDX is a click away when you're right inside the WorkWise ERP system. Again, I want you to remember that DDX really works well for the ERP forms and ERP related forms, and this is the thing that most people get intuitively because it's so seamless. Remember, you can go beyond it to almost any other kind of document you wish, whether it's related or not, and it can be extended into other systems and for other purposes and uses to make the tool portable throughout your organization. Now, the best way to show you, I think, what DDX is and what it does is to use a business process as a framework for showing you the features and functions in DDX. So we're going to look at the day in the life of, in this case, a customer order. And I'm going to take a very simplified process. We'll walk through it and we'll dive off and look at the various pieces of DDX so that you have an idea of what those features and functions are. Now, what I'd like you to remember as we go through this is my objective is to show you basic features and functions within DDX that can be applied to all sorts of different things. It's not limited to the customer order, but at least this puts us in a business context that hopefully we all understand. So my simplified business process is I get a customer PO, they email it to me, I go into WorkWise and I enter the customer order the way I always do, and then I want to file a copy of that PO because I want to preserve that. I then need to deliver the order acknowledgement and file the order acknowledgement. And somewhere along the line, I get an email from my customer related to this particular order. I'd like to capture that and file that as well. Also, I can find documents related to that order later. I could keep all that stuff in paper, but with DDX, there's no need to. They can all be kept and preserved and shared much more effectively in the electronic realm. So let's start at the end of this process and talk about how you can find documents within DDX. Now, we already saw one example of that with the click on a button within the workbench. What that actually did was it just automated a search function, the advanced search function built into the document viewer. If we look at the result of that click, it said, okay, I'm going to search for a particular keyword, our order number in this case, where it is equal to some value. And that value is passed in, and those other parameters are passed in when I click that button. I can also perform this advanced search and include additional criteria here if I wish, directly from the viewer, even if I'm not in the ERP system. In addition, I can select a specific kind of document I want to search for rather than searching all kinds of documents. So I've got a lot of ways to narrow my search down and make this list a little shorter. Now, there's another mechanism for searching, and you see it right up here on the toolbar. This is a little more akin to what you might see in Google, where I can type in a term, Bayside, and I can click the little search button here. And when I do, it runs out and it grabs a whole bunch of documents where any of the keywords contain this term, Bayside, or in the case of searchable PDF, we can look in the content of those documents as well. And you can see here I've got a whole lot of documents that meet that criteria. Looks like we've got a lot of things with that term in the customer name field, but it could be anywhere. If I've got too many things to look at, in both search mechanisms, I've got an ability to group the results. So for example, let's just grab the document type here and drag it up to this little heading. And now I've grouped that result by document type, and I can drill down and find the specific document that I'm looking for very, very quickly. And I'm just going to put this thing back here so that we see it in all its detail as in future searches. So this quick search, when I have it enabled for full text, can search the content of these documents as well. So for example, if I search for the word hat, I find a couple of documents, not because that word is in any of the keywords for these documents, but because these words exist in the body of searchable PDF. Like here in this document, this packing slip is the word hat, big tall hat. And on this next one, it is also in the body of this document, really tall hat. So that is really powerful. And what we've found through our benchmarking over the last several years is that, we have customers with 50 or 100,000 documents in their systems, and we have others with several million, 3, 4, 5 million documents in their system. And both of them can find the document that they're looking for through this kind of a search and have it up and visible on their screen in a second or two. So this thing is fast, really fast. And that's the point. When somebody calls and they have a question and you need access to documents to answer those questions, fast is good. I don't have to hang the phone up, go back and do research. It's all right there, right in front of me whenever I need it. Now there's a third way to locate documents, and that's using this folder view here. I'm going to click on the folder button, and when I do, we see what looks like a series of folders. Now it makes it look like we've got a company code and then a customer and an order number, a type of document, and then the individual document, all stored in folders on my system. Well, that is not true. None of these documents are actually stored in folders anywhere. They're embedded in the SQL Server database behind DDX, encrypted and compressed for safety and to be efficient on storage and retrieval. The hierarchy that you see there is really defined by what DDX calls a view. And you'll see up here in the middle of my screen, I've chosen a view called the order clip. And my system administrator has set this view up with this particular hierarchy using keywords in a particular order. It first uses the division or company code keyword, then the customer name, then the order number, then the type of document, then the individual document. And lastly, down here, the tabs you see on the bottom are the page number or virtual page number keyword. So that way we're able to construct these views in a way that's very familiar to anybody who's used Windows Explorer or Microsoft Outlook or other things. You've seen folders and the way things get organized in these folders. It makes it simple and easy for people to drill down and find the things they need, but it's really flexible. There's some real advantages to not physically storing them in folders, but building this display on the fly. One is the minute I have a new customer with a new order, all I need to do is save one document like the order acknowledgement or customer PO for that customer for that order, and all of the folders necessary to display the archived documents for that automatically appear the next time somebody goes to look. I don't need to create those folders ahead of time, and I don't need to be super picky about the way I name a file when I put it away, because the names of files, the locations that you stored them in don't matter. It is those keywords that bring everything together. Another advantage to this build it on the fly sort of an approach is that my system administrator can create a whole bunch of different views for different purposes. For example, if I were to switch here, and I have access to a whole bunch of views, you may or may not, but if I switch to the year, month, name view, we are looking at that exact same collection of documents, but in a different way. By company code, by year, by month, by individual date, by name, type of document, and so on and so forth. And now I'm down to the individual document. It's worth noting here that there is only one of this packing slip in my system, but it can appear as though it exists in different folders depending on the view that I happen to choose to use. The view serves another purpose as well, and that's one of security. I can limit what people see in a particular view. So for example, if I choose my manufacturing view, I will see only drawings and work instructions. And this view, even though it's looking at the same database that has all my purchase orders and order acknowledgments, HR information, and so on and so forth, allows me only to see these two different kinds of documents because of the way that view is set up. It is also further limited to showing me only the current revisions of these documents, even though there might be 5 other versions of this assembly file, assembly instructions on file. When I'm looking at it through the manufacturing view, I am only able to see the current version of it. That's really handy if you're an ISO certified shop. The other thing that limit is imposed on is all of the searches. So for example, if I do the exact same search that we did a moment ago for the word hat, I'm going to come up with nothing here. And the reason for that is that there are no documents available to me in this view that contain that word. But if I switch back to another view, back to my order clip, and do that exact same scenario, I come up with those same documents again because they are available to me in the order clip view. Now, once I've located a document, there's a couple other things that are worth noting here that I can do. Well, these documents are preserved in a read-only format by intent. DDX's mission in life is to archive these things and make them off limits once you've saved a copy of them, so I can always be assured when I go back and look at this invoice, it's exactly as it was when it was put away. However, we do realize that other things happen after the fact that you might want to take note of, so there is an ability to add notes to those documents. If I click on the notes button or this notes button up here, I can see that I've got a couple of notes. Each note is automatically date and time stamped, as well as digitally signed by who added it and who last changed it. So I can add a new note very easily by clicking the new note, type the new note, and save it. And now I'm good to go. I've got a brand new note associated with this invoice that's going to be visible to anybody else who can see this invoice. I also have privileges to delete notes, which is maybe not something everybody has, but I can do that as well. Another new feature that's really kind of useful is this linked document feature. Now, we see a bunch of documents here that are related to each other, but let's flip over and look at the accounts payable world just for a brief moment and look at Bicycles Unlimited and look at a supplier invoice. Here we go. I've got this supplier invoice captured here, and I'd really like, I like the way that this is organized here by type of document, but I like to know what things this invoice is related to. Well, someone who has privileges can link any document to any other document that they see, and when they've done that, you're creating this list you see down here at the bottom. I've chosen and selected this invoice, but down at the bottom I see that the invoice is linked to a receiver, it is linked to an AP check, it is linked to a purchase order, and yet a different receiver, a bill of lading here. Linking a document's really easy. I select a document, I make it a target by clicking the target button, and then I navigate to any other document that I wish, like this correspondence, and I say I want these two things linked. And when I do that, it creates this sibling relationship. So regardless of whether I'm looking at the email as my primary document or the invoice as my primary document, the other is going to show down on the list of linked documents. So if I click over here on the invoice, there's my correspondence and it shows up here as well. Now I can also, for those things where I've made a mistake, I can unlink these as well, which I'm going to do just to keep my data clean. Now that's a pretty cool feature because it means you don't have to have any logical relationship between the keywords associated with things. All you need to do is have that link. And we've left that open for people to programmatically generate those links if they wish. So if you've got a clever SQL programmer, there are ways to populate those links using information maybe outside of DDX, like the WorkWise information, to pull it all together. Pretty cool sort of feature. Likewise, let's just do that search again and find a few documents. I can email any document that I see in here, and if I want to email multiples, I hold my control key down and I click the several documents that I want included in the email and click the mail button, and it extracts those things from DDX and launches my Outlook with those things embedded as attachments, and I can send it to whoever I wish. I can open a copy of these things, so if I want to go change something, I can extract, for example, a copy here, and it will open it up in whatever program Windows thinks is appropriate. I can make whatever changes or highlights or other things, and I can save it back to DDX directly to create a new version of something. Note that with DDX, everything is revision controlled. I never save over an existing document and replace it. I always save a new version of something. So if I were to make changes to this thing and save this document back using the same set of keywords associated with it, which it now can automatically do, it will create a new version of this document, and I have now both the old and the new. You can see that here even with the ERP related documents where I've got an acknowledgement that is not the latest revision paired up with an acknowledgement that is. I can also print these things and save them externally and so on and so forth. Now, this is the desktop viewer that you all have. All of this stuff is there and accessible and available to you today. If you don't have things like the linking capability or something like that, just update. It comes along with our updates and it's not something that you need to add on. However, if you need to access these things by tablets, by iPads or iPhones or Android phones or other things, or maybe even outside the building on the internet, we have an optional solution for that, and that is our web viewer. It looks and feels and operates very much like the desktop viewer with the folders and the searches and everything else. It just appears in a web browser that is compatible with iPads, Androids, so on and so forth. So this is an optional module that you can add on to your existing system if you choose. Okay, so we've talked a lot about finding documents. That's all great and fine, but let's back up a little bit and talk about how we capture documents quickly. We're going to go back to the file a purchase order step in my process and see what we can get from there. My first step is my customer sent me their purchase order by email. That's what you see in front of you right now. And all I need to do to grab this and put it in my queue of things to do is to grab the email here and drag it and drop it onto this shortcut, which is a shortcut to a directory that's my queue of things to put away later. So this is miscellaneous stuff, not the WorkWise forms that you might otherwise be using. Once it's there, then I can pop it up in my DDX publisher, like you see right in front of you. And the DDX publisher, its mission in life is to let me classify all sorts of miscellaneous documents and files, put them away in DDX so I can find them later. Well, here's my customer's purchase order. Well, it's up on the screen. I can go over to my other monitor, which you guys can't see, and I can enter that order just the way I would normally enter it in WorkWise Order Entry. And then I can come back and I can say, I'm going to file this. Now I'm going to choose from one of the many different types of documents here, the customer purchase order. And when I do, you'll see the field names change to be something appropriate for a customer order. I can type in the customer name and number and so on and so forth. I can choose from drop-down lists that my system administrator set up for me, so I don't have to enter all that stuff manually. And or I can use this value enhancement that DDX provides. The value enhancement adds a couple new buttons that you see up here, the database lookup and a thing called quick tag. Now the database lookup is pretty simple. It can be taught to ask for one keyword, like our order number you see lit up in a different color here, and I'm going to enter part of the order number. Let's just enter the whole order number and say, go out to the database and look that up and find it. And when it does, it only found one of them, so it just brought back all that information and filled my keywords in for me. And I can click save, and now that document is saved into DDX, and I can go on to the next thing on my list. You'll notice my list here got shorter. Now, if I want to know what the quick tag does, quick tag works a little bit differently. Here I'm looking at a supplier invoice here for a moment. And it is a searchable PDF, which is important for this purpose. When I engage quick tag can read barcodes that I see on the screen. It can also, let's start at the supplier name. It can also grab information directly from the printed page. And you'll notice it's now moved on to the invoice number, the invoice date, and so on and so forth. So I can just go through this process here and so on and so forth until I get down to the bottom, and I can put in that and save it, and I'm good to go, and I move on to the next thing. So that value enhancement gives me these couple extra capabilities, and it requires a little bit of work and a little bit of customization on our part, but not hard to do. And if you're using the publisher for a lot of things, it can really help speed things up and maybe improve the accuracy overall as well. So let's go on to the next step in our document capture here. I've got a order acknowledgement that I need to deliver. Now, really, delivering and filing it is all one fell swoop. I just print them from DDX and there's nothing to see. All the delivery preferences and everything for that customer and order acknowledgements, that specific kind of form, have already been set up ahead of time in the customer maintenance. So you don't really need to do anything here other than say, I'm going to print it to DDX and I'm good to go. I mean, very, very automatic, very hands-off. Now, let's say I've got another miscellaneous thing here, like filing an email that I want to take care of. Well, I've got this email up here, and I could print this thing out and scan it back in and use the publisher to put it away. But if you have the optional form recognition module, which serves a bunch of different purposes, this is just one of them. The form recognition module comes with this handy dandy little print driver here called the -DDX printer. And instead of printing this out, scanning it back in and using the publisher, I can say print it to the DDX print driver. It checks to see if it recognizes this form. Well, it's not going to recognize this form because this is, in fact, not a form. It's free-form stuff. It lets me save it as a PDF, print it, or publish it. And if I choose to publish it, it's going to convert this to a PDF, and then it's going to launch the publisher showing me only one document in it, and it's going to be this document that's been converted. I can save it and I can put it away. I don't want to type all that stuff in, so I'm just going to use that database lookup again. And I've saved that email now and preserved it along with all the other documents in my list. So we've been through all of these items here on our list. We filed the PO, we've delivered an order acknowledgement and filed it, we filed an email, and we've been able to find all those things and more, like the packing lists and bills of ladings and invoices and so on and so forth. Now imagine using those same tools in a different context here in terms of delivering a purchase order, filing it, maybe filing a packing slip, entering and filing a supplier invoice, and being able to find all those documents. So there's a whole nother world here that you could attack with DDX and using those same things. And even further, there's things in manufacturing and quoting and HR, quality receiving. I mean, use your imagination. There's a lot of different ways that you can attack things. Now, we've looked at a number of things that we've done in recent years here to fix some of the business headaches that you might find, linking in the web viewer, the value enhancement, and the print driver. What I'd like to point out is that there's some other features here that you have at your disposal from an administrative standpoint. You can add new documents. You can create your own views and collections. We ship with a half a dozen of those already created, including the ones you've seen here. But you can create your own, should you wish. You can set up security so certain users are limited to only certain views and only being able to do certain things. DDX has built into it a capability for simple workflow. So if you've got simple review and approval processes, you might want to talk to us. We might be able to help you use DDX to grab those documents, sign them, and move them along in a business process where it makes sense. You can add watermarks here. For example, we've got some customers who have used DDX to add a buyer signature to POs as they go out the door automatically rather than having somebody sign them. Or you can put, for example, background copies where you get a watermark that says copy or original or something else if you choose. Revision control can be set up and controlled to some extent within the administrator, and you can set up retention policies that are going to help you decide how long some documents need to be around. And once you set the retention policies up for your invoices, for example, you can say, I need to keep them around for 7 years, and when they exceed that age, DDX will handle it for you and just purge those things out of the system, essentially shredding them. So you don't have to pack up banker boxes and other things every year and move them to some off-site place and then deal with them later. DDX can handle that all for you. So from a benefit standpoint, using DDX means you've reduced your risk. Disaster recovery is a real possibility. if you destroy a piece of paper, all the information on that piece of paper is gone and gone forever. And you might be able to recreate it, but then again, you might not. With DDX, because it's all electronic, you can back the stuff up. You can recover it in a matter of a couple hours if the worst happens to you. So you've really reduced the risk to your organization. You've improved sustainability. There's a lot less wasted motion and space and time and money by using DDX to house your documents, manage your documents, and make them accessible to those that need them. You've freed your documents up to simplify and speed communication, and our customers tell us over and over again that there's just some enormous savings to be had, and to be had very, very quickly, right? It can pay for itself in a short period of time. It's just a tool, but it's a tool to help you with your business processes, and again, a whole variety of business processes out there. So all those headaches we talked about at the beginning, those things are gone when you start using DDX. Now, we can help you take this further if you wish. We offer consulting and training and customization in DDX, additional ERP integration or integration with other systems, help you set up workflow, etc. And we also have online Dash TV. You'll find, in fact, that from the help menus, you can get to Dash TV to look at some short online videos that are aimed at training on various aspects of the system. We also do custom software, obviously WorkWise ERP integration in a variety of languages and platforms. We're there to help you from a whole variety of standpoints. So I encourage you to think beyond here. There's all sorts of other things and other places where you might be able to use DDX to help. And you just need to use your imagination a little bit. And if you're not sure, give WorkWise or give us a call. We can help you. So our job is to deal with document management automatically for a lot of the documents that WorkWise ERP spits out, but for lots of other things as well, and to deal with the delivery, right? So WorkWise ERP forms are just the beginning. And just to revisit this one last time, remember, DDX is for a lot of things. Your ERP forms, those things that are related to something in the ERP system, but almost anything else, whether it's related or not. And it's portable. You can extend DDX to work with just about any other system that you may have internally and do things with it similar to what WorkWise does with DDX right now. At this stage of the game, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to questions, and we'll see how we fare from there.
All right, perfect. So the first question is, how do you link to Dash data from external applications, MS Excel, MS Access, etc.? We would archive a lot more documents, images, design files, etc. if we could get to them outside of the Dash viewer.
Ah, cool. It's actually very simple. In the case of the desktop viewer, we offer a very simple command line style interface where you can tell it to launch the viewer if it's not already running. And here's the selection criteria I want to initiate for a search. So I want to search in the order number keyword field where it's equal to something you pass it online. So if you're talking about integrating to it from Excel, for example, a little VB scripting in Excel can construct that link for you. So you can click a link in a cell within Excel and have it launch DDX and perform that search for you. The same is true of Access and Word and all sorts of other things as well. Now, if you're using our web viewer, the web viewer has an equivalent to that where it's just a URL. The address that you go to on that URL line can include all sorts of search criteria that goes with it too. So it'll launch your browser, whatever that may be, and perform a search for you right away. For what it's worth, this information I just described is all covered in the DDX Archive Administrator Guide. We talk about how to integrate the viewer and the publisher, for that matter, with other things. If you need some help, give us a call. Otherwise, check the manual out. That might be able to help you there.
All right, and we do have another question. How is DDX licensed?
Oh, good question. Once you own DDX, you own it for a server for a particular company, and then the only metering that we do is based on concurrent viewer. So you can use the publisher on as many places as you want. You can set up the viewer on as many stations as you want, but only so many individuals can be accessing the viewer at any given point in time.
Yeah, good point, Jim. And when licensed with WorkWise and you have what we call the all access path, then the number of concurrent users for the viewer is set equal to your WorkWise number of concurrent users.
True.
And so any more recently upgraded customers and new customers should have already an equivalent number of viewer licenses as they have WorkWise licenses. And if they need more viewer licenses, of course, that can be accommodated too. Great question. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jim, but just so we're on the same page here, the typical WorkWise deployment of DDX includes the archive, of course, and the viewer license, and also the publisher, which is the tool to pull other related documents into the archive. Over and above that, there are options that you could deploy in the publisher, like the value-add enhancements for quick tag and the lookup. And over and above that is the optional form recognition DDX.Port module. So those, if you're a recent deployment of WorkWise, then you should expect out of the box to have full capabilities to archive, view, and publish documents. Those other modules would be add-on features that you can license when you're ready to do that. Did I get that about right, Jim?
That sounds about right. The only other add-on I would put on that list would be the web viewer.
Yes, thank you. Right.
Okay, well, we have a couple more questions. Can you use DDX to archive SSRS reports?
Yes. Save your SSRS as PDF. And if you're using our form recognition module, you can train it to recognize those PDFs and pluck out the keyword information and other things directly from the printed page so that you don't have to go through the publisher at all. Otherwise, without form recognition, sure, save it as a PDF, use the publisher to classify it and put it away.
There's one other feature that I'm fond of that I'd like to throw out there as long as we're on the subject of the publisher. Jim did a great job of showing you different ways of finding keys and looking up those keywords. But one of the things that I've seen other customers use effectively too is, for example, when you're in, say, the customer service workbench, and you pop open, show me the archive documents for this order, up comes the viewer. There's a function to, just like regular Windows copy and paste, you can copy the keywords from that document that you have open in the archive, and then in the publisher, paste those keys, in which case that PDF purchase order for that customer order can simply be pasted with those keys, and then all of the related keys for that customer order are already simply put in for you by doing the right-click paste. And so that's something I've seen other customers use very effectively. Jim, I didn't see you do that. I just want to point that out as another option that's standard in the publisher. Did I get that about right?
It is standard in the publisher and the viewer. It goes one step further. If you can right-click and copy the keywords from the viewer and then right-click and paste them into the publisher, or you can drag and drop them from the viewer into the publisher if you've not got enough screen real estate to do that.
Nice. Good. Thanks.
Okay, and we have another question. What versions of WorkWise ERP does DDX support?
Version 6 to current and future.
Does that go back far enough?
I don't think we have any version 5 customers anymore, but we've done them too.
Okay, good to know. And then lastly, can the web viewer be used by customers or vendors?
It can be. The web viewer does not need to be exposed to the internet, right? So for a lot of our customers that use the web viewer, it may be limited only to those on their intranet and not outside of the company. But you can expose it to the external world if you choose. And there's a feature in the creation of views that lets me set up a view that is cognizant of who you are. So for example, that order clip view shows me all the orders for every customer, but I could set up a view similar to that that says, well, I need to know who you are and what your customer number is, and I'm going to use that to filter what I show you. So you could set it up as a customer portal if you chose, and when your customer logs in, it would limit their view of their documents only to those documents that are tagged for that particular customer. So good question.
That's it? Okay. And that concludes our DASH webinar for today. Thank you, Roger, and thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you all for coming.